Hello, and welcome to Anime Audio Commentary. Today I'll be commenting on Episode 1 of Spy Family Season 3. If you'd like to watch along, then start watching now. So it seems like we're just going to get a recap of the normal state of affairs, the status quo as it were. But last we left off in Season 2, I do believe we had ended with that episode of Becky trying to, flirt with Lloyd and replace Yor. It was always destined to fail, really, but there is a certain kind of humor in that, this sort of thing's just happening, and even beyond that, the idea that the current score, as it were, is Yor 2, Homewreckers 0. Because lest we forget, Fiona, one of the other agents, is also unable to, destroy everything despite her best efforts. Thinking about it, I seem to recall that the last episode also had, a Bond segment. I think it was that bit about, a burning building and Bond, helped save someone or something to that effect. Pretty good segment if I do say so myself. Not sure if it's necessarily something you should end a season with, because I've sort of talked about it before, but one of the things I didn't like about Season 2 was some of the pacing. Because I quite enjoyed a lot of the bits on the boat, but I thought it probably would have been better if it had been, just a little bit more fast-paced than it ended up being. So I guess in accordance with the boat stuff being done, we're just sort of getting back into normal slice-of-life stuff. Although I'm wondering if this is, filler. I don't want to say it's filler content because, the slice-of-life family stuff is the bread and butter of Spy Family, but, I don't think this stuff was necessarily in the manga. Or at least it's not ringing any bells in my mind. I almost hate to say it, but I think the next chapter in the manga, if I don't miss my guess here, is a Frankie chapter, which, it could be a good thing or a bad thing, because I think Frankie's been a little bit hit or miss sometimes. The poor guy is a character, he just suffers, he's an informant for Lloyd, but he's just kinda probably not appreciated as much as he should be. And I don't know. The poor guy needs a W at some point, and oh dear. So Bond is witnessing a horrible future in which either through malice or severe mechanical failure, trees are being hurled by a piece of construction equipment. So, okay. I think this is firmly in the territory of filler, but this is a welcome development. Because I think I've said it before, my favorite part in Spy Family was the bit when Anya first met Bond, trying to figure out the bomb plot and what was going on. The various things going on with Lloyd doing spy work, Yor trying to find her missing daughter, and Anya trying to foil this bomb plot by herself. So this guy, he's having a bad day. And to some degree, I can understand having a bad day, and even why he's having a bad day. However, none of that really justifies doing what he is alleged to do in Bond's vision of the future. So the question is, at this point in time, only Anya is aware of what's gonna go on here. And naturally, she wants to stop it, but, what can you do when you're a kid, really? So, I guess she's doing really the only thing she can, trying to get her family out of danger. So she's just telling, the bald-faced lie of, I want to go home and study. So it's okay, something's wrong here. What's going on? Yor is just taking it at face value, oh, Anya, you want to study on your day off? Good. And Lloyd is I guess, a little suspicious, but he's willing to capitalize on the opportunity. I mean, frankly, more fool him. I think he should know Anya well enough at this point that something is definitively off. At least he recognizes that Anya knows something's going on here. And I guess, despite all the humor to the contrary about her schoolwork, Anya is pretty smart to be able to kind of lie off the cuff in a convincing and believable way like she's doing. But, yeah, so Anya, she might be getting into trouble here. She witnessed someone climbing into an excavator. And if I'm not mistaken, this might be the building that burned down when Ban was doing all that business last season. And I guess at least Anya managed to come up with a plausible way to get Lloyd involved in this. And Lloyd, being the spy he is, he can sort of intuit that there might be something wrong going on here. Yeah, I guess when you really get down to it, Anya being stupid, that's not really fair, I mean, I suppose she has the extra benefit of being able to read minds and all that, but even being able to lie convincingly, that takes some degree of intelligence. And now it is a good thing she drew this to Lloyd's attention, because he understands that, okay, this guy's working on the day off, this holiday. He's sort of destroying interior stuff without cleaning up the exterior. He's just, falling out of the cab, too. That's probably cause for concern, because, falling and, knocking your head on a job site, that's, well, not good first and foremost, but it's a good way to get real injured real quick. Oh, dear. So if the guy was sort of, coming to his senses here, that pigeon really put an end to it. Man, you have to wonder, could this all have been avoided save for that pigeon? Alright, so Lloyd's leaping into action here, as it were. I do like that his first impulse was to protect Anya, as is only right, but now he's, naturally getting involved. That's probably more than, one could expect of an average citizen, but, that's not who Lloyd Forger is. I do find it interesting that he's, immediately latching onto the idea of, I'll throw a rock at the guy and try and, knock him out, but, failing that, I guess the best thing to do is engage him in, crane-to-crane combat here by hot-wiring another vehicle. I guess, unfortunately, Lloyd hasn't considered that this guy is, deranged and that things are going to escalate. I suppose he has a better chance of ensuring things don't go wrong if he can, fight back on even terms, but that said, I feel like using construction equipment in such a manner is, a risky prospect at the best of times, So even Yor, despite her ostensible task of watching Anya, she can't help herself but intervene. And I suppose that's consistent with her character and her job as well. Because, yeah, she is an assassin, but one of the little things we learn here and there is that her job is to sort of prune and tend to the garden that is society. She kills people, but they are, quote-unquote, bad people. Once again, Yor has displayed a rather superhuman ability, and it's not ever something we've really gotten a whole lot of information on. I don't know, because on the one hand, I kind of just want to take it at face value, but when you have stuff like Anya having been the product of experimentation, and Bond also having been the product of experimentation, you can't help but wonder if maybe Yor was experimented on too in some type of way. Because I feel like all these feats of superhuman strength and agility, that can't merely be the result of training and practice. So, good on Lloyd, because, he just kind of subdued the guy. And, frankly, I think he'd probably be well within his rights to, beat him senseless, but just, disabling the backhoe is enough. Oh dear. Now isn't it typical? Despite all the effort Anya put in to save the day, she has to go back and study because that's what she said. And, no kid likes studying, and Anya's not particularly good or inclined. Oh dear. So I was gonna say, that might be nice encouragement, cooking a nice big feast if Anya does well, but when it's you're doing the cooking, that's pick your poison, really. Things aren't gonna go well for your stomach. So there you have it, in a way, no good deed goes unpunished. Despite her good work, Anya just suffers. So now we're getting into more spy business, It seems like the handler's informing people of bad actors who presumably need to be dealt with in one way or another. Well, I say bad people and all that, but it seems like it's more of a petty diplomatic issue. And I don't want to say hence why that's being handed off to Fiona, but, it seems like it's probably a lesser thing than Operation Strix, therefore it's Fiona's purview to handle. So, she's come to Lloyd for advice, needing to forge a seal and all that. I feel like she doesn't actually need his help, she just wanted to spend time with him, however briefly. Although, unfortunately, I think this means Lloyd's going to introduce her to Frankie. Which, in a way, it's kind of punishment for all involved here. Because no doubt, Fiona doesn't want to spend any time with Frankie at all under any circumstances. And at the same time, Frankie has to deal with Fiona. Because, she's not exactly a worm-carrying person at the best of times. And I feel like if Frankie gets the wrong idea, he's going to be in for a world of suffering. Things are already kind of off to a bad start because Frankie's lair is a bit, ramshackle, I suppose. It's certainly a spooky kind of place here. And the childish booby traps that he's set up, it doesn't exactly set up a good first impression here. Not that I think any first impression with Fiona would have gone remarkably well, but, she's certainly not going to be well disposed towards the guy now, however helpful he might be. Oh dear. So, he's decided to put a gun to her head. I feel like she's swiftly going to disabuse him, Okay, well maybe she isn't, because Frank is just like, oh, you know Lloyd, okay, great. I figured she was at least gonna, put him in an armbar or something. Oh dear, Frankie. The poor guy is trying to be cool, but it's just not working. And then revealing that you didn't even have a real gun, that is perhaps a, tactical mistake. Ooh. Alright, so this is another interesting little wrinkle. Lloyd has only put Fiona in contact with Frankie, who can find someone to forge things. He himself doesn't have the skill set, but, he knows people. He has a web of informants. Unfortunately, this doesn't really work for Fiona, because she's on a tight timeline, and she's, not really willing to compromise with anyone, least of all Frankie. For better or for worse, he's kind of laying his cards on the table here, telling her to her face that, look, you are a nasty, standoffish person, but without me, you're not going to meet the forger, so, you're just going to have to lump it, lady. Unfortunately, it seems like things aren't quite so simple as Fiona would like them to be, because I reckon if you're someone like Frankie who has a web of people who can do things illicitly, it wouldn't do to have, their addresses and contact information all on hand written down. He's contacting this forger essentially through a coded radio broadcast. That's not something you can just, whip up right away. Not in the same way that it would be easy to just, drop in to visit someone. Ooh. Alright, so Frankie, he's making a point here that, look, Fiona, you would stand out like a sore thumb going into this place here, so we need disguises. Fortunately, Frankie is a master of disguise. Unfortunately, for Fiona, he has opted to disguise them as a couple. I feel like this is more self-serving than Frankie would let on. Oh dear. To Fiona's credit, she's not making it readily apparent how much she hates Frankie. Okay, well, I take that back. I kind of figured that was par for the course, where, she gets the inkling that this was done out of self-interest, she will shoot him dead, which, can you blame her? Aw, Frankie, bud, what are you doing? You approach the man at the door, you just, say, it's me, Frankie, that really just kind of defeats the whole purpose of being disguised. And it's kind of worse that it seems like everyone recognizes Frankie, but everyone's more surprised that he's here with a woman seemingly of her own volition, which, that bodes poorly, but it bodes poorly that it's everyone's first reaction as well. I feel like, Fiona's, well within her rights to, twist his arm off or something. Shooting him would probably be a bit gauche, It certainly wouldn't ingratiate her to all these people, but... it might not be too excessive. So at this point, one wonders what the purpose of the disguise was for. It seems like Frankie wasn't really necessary in all of this anymore, seeing as how Fiona's just interacting with the forger herself. I guess maybe his real role is to smooth things over, because it seems like both Fiona and the forger are unreasonable people. Yeah, I don't know. See, I feel like Frankie can be, if not charming, the sort of amiable type of person who that people just kind of like in the same way that you might like a pathetic, mangy, stray dog. Oh dear. It seems like Frankie might have gotten everyone into trouble. I wonder if this has to do with him removing his disguise and, talking to everyone with everyone addressing him by name. Now, unfortunately, this forger has made the rookie mistake, whereby if he's being followed by state security, the one thing you really don't want to do is run, because that sort of telegraphs to them that they're after you. And while they certainly are after you, you at least want to have something of an element of surprise on your side. Go down like a blind corner and ambush them, rather than run. At least Fiona kind of knows what's up here. She recognizes that by this point, their cover is thoroughly blown. The only way out is through. They're gonna have to, beat the brakes off a couple state security agents and, do what needs to be done, as it were. Fiona's not killing people right now, but, oh, that's interesting. Frankie's kind of leveraging the situation here, saying that, Fiona is saving all of our bacon here. She is actually trustworthy and her job is important. Ah, Frankie. The poor guy. You know, like, you save a woman from being shot and she treats you as having impure motives. I mean, Frankie doesn't do himself any favors by saying, no, I wasn't trying to hug you, I was protecting you from a gunshot. But, like, I feel like the truth is readily apparent when you've been grazed by the bullet, you know? You don't have to just say stuff that kind of incriminates you. At least Frankie has a working knowledge of, like, back alleys and, you know, workarounds, places where they can be somewhat safe. Okay. So Frankie is, giving a bit of insight into his motivations here. You know, he's lived in Ostania his entire life, but I guess he doesn't like the way things are run, hence why he does what he does as an informant. You know, effectively as an agent, you know. It's kind of interesting. I guess maybe we didn't know that about him before. Now, Fiona's visiting to pick up a paper from Frankie, presumably to get, you know, the forgery job here. Wow. You know, it seems like things have kind of worked out maybe, but things are definitely over budget, you know. The guy charged more than Fiona was willing to go for, but I mean, what are you gonna do, you know? This is like secret agent stuff. I feel like cost is kind of a secondary thing. Oh no. So Fiona informs Frankie that she'll have cause for his services again, but like, I assume the guy would jump at the opportunity, but, you know, understandably he wants nothing to do with her, being the dangerous, unfriendly person she is. Alright, well that's it for this episode. If you've enjoyed it, then by all means, tune in for the next one. See you, Space Cowboy.